other news, completely different than YouTube and me ranting about YouTube again. We are, if you don't know this, now you're probably not the biggest, some of you out there are probably not the biggest wrestling fans. And if you aren't, that's fine. That's okay. But right now, I want to talk about something that I think is exciting. Because I think, and if you've listened to this show, if you've been a long time listener, thank you, all three of you. Back in April after WrestleMania, I covered WrestleMania with Sean Crawdaddy Crawford from my Get Slam days. And him and I talked about that. So you should know that I have a love for pro wrestling. I think now is the greatest time to be a pro wrestling fan because thanks to none other than AEW, All Elite Wrestling, adding some competition to the world of pro wrestling. I think that they have been without competition for a while, and I think that really pushing WWE and really what Triple H can do and his abilities, because I think when it boils down to it, if you're looking at creativity, I'm going to be looking at Cody Rhodes and Triple H, those kind of guys. I'm not looking at Vince because Vince is a full-blown madman. But wrestling Twitter has kind of gone crazy today. Again, Thursday as I'm recording this, September 19th. Kind of gone crazy because the new NXT premiered on USA. It's their new 2-hour cable version of NXT. NXT had been running on the WWE network since the launch. So, yeah, a lot of people are excited about it because now we know in October, well, we've known this for a while, but on October 2nd, AEW is finally going to be coming onto TV on TNT with their weekly program, AEW Dynamite, which, again, they fully announced the name of it on the day after NXT goes live on USA. Interesting decision there. But there was an interview that took place with Kenny Omega, who's one of the big stars in AEW. If you don't know who Kenny Omega is, you will soon know. Most diehard wrestling fans know who Kenny Omega is because of what he did with New Japan Pro Wrestling and all across the indies, but he never truly came to the WWE. I think he was the kind of guy who didn't really want to work with Vince McMahon. And I can kind of see that. Based on what people have said in the past about the WWE and Vince McMahon, I can totally understand. So what Kenny said in an interview when asked about NXT and the whole Wednesday Night Wars, which we're kind of dubbing it, which honestly I'm okay with. Because as a kid, when you had the Monday Night Wars, you didn't really realize what you had. If you were my age, again, I'm 26, 25, almost 26. Pretty much 26. At my age in the 90s, when all this stuff was going down, I really didn't know what to make of it. And also, I was a WWE household. So I really didn't know anything about WCW and what was going on there. All I knew was Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. And that's what's so funny is you look at the generation before me, the Gen Xers, they mostly knew Hulk Hogan as a good guy. I mostly knew him as Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Regardless, the Monday Night Wars, I didn't really realize what was going on or what I had. So now I get my own version of that on Wednesday nights with the Wednesday Night Wars between NXT and AEW. So what Kenny Omega said that ruffled some feathers, he was during an interview, he was asked about it, and here's what he said, quote, "You can call it a war if you want. It's like, to me, we're in a completely different kind of business. I mean, what they're doing is different from what we're doing. It's weird because it's hard to say you're going to war with people that I can call my friends." And he's collaborated with Xavier Woods and other members of the New Day. He's done stuff with their YouTube channel, Up, Up, Down, Down, their gaming channel. So, yeah, he is friends with people in WWE. And believe it or not, that's possible for indie stars to be friends with other people in that company. And then he goes on to say, and yet we're going to war. And yet then I can sit back and look at the grand picture. I'm going to war with these dudes that if we're on the same show together, the same promotion, let's pretend there were no borders. Let's pretend there were no promotions. Let's just pretend there's just one big promotion, which for a while there was, WWE. if these guys were in the same show as me, they'd be in the dark match. They'd be in the opening match of my main event match. So essentially, what he's saying, if it's kind of in the woods for non-wrestling fans, which again, if you're listening to it and you're not really into this stuff, I'm impressed. I really am. So what he's essentially saying that they wouldn't even be on TV. A dark match is a match that usually they do before a live show to kind of get the crowd riled up and get people excited. He's saying they wouldn't even be on the main like the main card, which really sent wrestling Twitter ablaze. But this is what's interesting. This isn't the first time that somebody is shot across the bow. If you go back and you look in, I would say probably May, not long after AEW's big debut with Double or Nothing, which I thought was a fantastic pay-per-view event. And that's the thing. AEW has been knocking it out of the park. And they've been doing amazing things. Now, not everything has been a winner in all those cards, because that's just how it goes. But I think they've been doing a very good job with presenting their identity and what their product wants to be. So this isn't the first time somebody's shot across the bow. I mean, Cody Rhodes, for Pete's sake, his entrance in Double or Nothing, he straight up takes a sledgehammer to a throne that looks like a Triple H King of Kings throne. So this isn't new, them going after each other. I like it. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people think, why are you trying to punch up and go after the WWE? Why not focus on what you're doing? But when they're the big dogs in the yard, why not get a little scrappy with them? Why not pull them down into the mud? And you can't tell me that WWE isn't scared. I definitely think WWE is threatened and sees AEW as competition. And the reason I say this isn't the first time, if you go back to May, after Double or Nothing, Seth Rollins goes on Twitter and says about a week later after their pay-per-view, Extreme Rules, he says best wrestling in the world, period. And then doubles down on it, has a whole Twitter fight with William Ospreay about it, and really doubles down on WWE. And, people were complaining about this. People were, didn't think that he shouldn't be punching down, where we said AEW shouldn't be punching up, WWE shouldn't be punching down. Those same people that were complaining about Seth Rollins are applauding Kenny Omega. So I don't understand the whole thing behind it. And personally, I think both are great, and I think both are fun, because to come out and just completely, almost immediately ignore your competition like that, I think that's silly. And I know WWE does that when TNA was actually good and legitimately making moves to, I want to say probably 06 to 08 probably was the best period for TNA. When that was happening, WWE didn't mention them. WWE to this day still doesn't mention TNA or Impact or whatever they want to call themselves. They don't mention them or have any part of that because they don't think they need to. They think they're better than them. Whereas AEW, I think they really feel like they're being threatened, and they really want to say, hey, we got to do things because these guys are actually making moves and making waves, and people are latching onto this. How do we do something like that? And you could argue that they had that USA deal with NXT going on Wednesdays probably in the bag for months, and they might have planned that, but as soon as AEW announces they're going to be going live Wednesday nights on TNT, not as soon, probably a little bit later, not that much later, NXT is like, oh, we're going 2 hours and we're going to be on USA Network. I think these two should have these little spats and these Twitter fights. I think it's good. I think it's entertaining. What is wrestling? Vince McMahon likes to call wrestling sports entertainment. You're in the world of entertainment. Why not have some fun with it? Why not go after each other? To completely ignore each other and act like neither exists, that's just silly. Now, I do think at some points, I think AEW goes a little bit too much on WWE, and where I think they could just focus on their own product. And I understand what Kenny is coming from a little bit, because what he's trying to say is they're on different planets. They're on different waveforms. And I truly think AEW is trying to sell a different product than the WWE. Now, again, I think this is being in direct competition with AEW. WWE has leaned into a more mature audience. They're kind of going back to that pre Linda McMahon running for office PG era of WWE. They're trying to get more adult, and they're leaning more into that. But I still think they're going to be a totally different product than AEW because from what I've heard from Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes, Dynamite is going to focus more on in-ring storytelling, and they're going to kind of regulate. I can't even talk. Relegate their behind-the-scenes storylines outside of the ring more towards other content like YouTube. I don't think that's going to be 100% the case because you're probably going to have people that watch AEW on TNT that might not watch Being the Elite or whatever they will do on YouTube. They're not going to probably go there. Now, you could probably do it on Twitter or, some sort of social media. You could probably get away with it there, but I don't know how much they're going to hold to that. But it looks like AEW is going to focus more on in-ring storytelling with their talent, whereas WWE traditionally has always been the bigger soap opera spectacle where they do a lot more of character development and talking than they do actual in-ring work, which is fine. I like that those two are going to have different approaches because if AEW wants to just do the same thing as WWE, why not just have those guys be in the WWE? I honestly think the difference is they want to be their own bosses. They want to have their own control over what their creators can do, and they really just don't want to work with Vince McMahon. Because a good portion of these guys have worked for Vince McMahon and they want to do something different and they want to innovate and change the world of pro wrestling. And I think that's awesome. That is a great thing. WWE can be, I think both companies are going to be better. And it's okay to have these little jabs at each other and these little things because it makes entertaining. I mean, look how much fun, and I'm reaching out to probably above my demographic, but all I have for frame of reference is WWE documentaries. And granted, they're going to kind of slant a direction because obviously the history is written by the victor. They won the Monday Night Wars. I mean, you can listen to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, which is a really good podcast. I'd recommend it. Or Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. Goodness gracious. Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard is also a really good podcast. You have those frames of references. That's what I have. But look at what they were doing. They were pushing each other to the limit. Competition only makes products better. In any business, any form of life, when you have competition, you're going to elevate your talent, you're going to elevate your abilities, and you're going to have to innovate and think of new ways to make your product fun and exciting. So Kenny Omega saying these things and reaching across the bow and saying we're on different planets, we're a different thing, we're the big time, they're the developmental leagues. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think NXT for the last few years has probably been the best thing that WWE has put out, minus Bray Wyatt and the Fiend gimmick. But this is not, there's nothing bad about this situation. I think people need to get over it. Kenny Omega is just playing with them and taking jabs at them, and it's a promotion. It's to get people to look at AEW. If you go out and say they're developmental, we're the big dogs, this is really where you want to watch real wrestling, that's going to drive people to watch it. You're going to act like you don't want to see it, but you do. There's nothing wrong with a guy like Kenny Omega coming out and having confidence. Because that cockiness and that confidence, you may think, oh, it's just a stupid Twitter fight. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't care about it. Yes, you do. Because now you want to see what AEW can do. You know what I mean? Think about it. So regardless, I'm excited to watch both products. I can't wait for AEW to come to TV. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be so much fun. And Wednesday Night Wars, baby. Bring them on.